The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Claire Morgan's modest living room as her trembling hands held an old faded photograph. Her breath caught in her throat. Could this be real? After more than 3 decades of silence, a flicker of hope ignited deep within her, demanding answers. Claire Morgan, a quiet librarian in a small Oregon coastal town, had built a life of solitude around books and memories. Beneath her calm exterior lay a fierce determination and a heart burdened by loss. 3 sons vanished years ago, yet never forgotten. Please share where you are watching from in the comments below, and take a moment to like the video if you enjoyed this story. Your support means a lot. Claire Morgan was known throughout the small coastal town of Seabrook, Oregon, not just as the diligent librarian at the local library, but as a woman of quiet resilience. At 58, her silver-streaked chestnut hair framed a face that bore the gentle marks of time and sorrow. Her deep hazel eyes often held a distant look, as if they were searching for something just beyond reach. Books had always been her refuge, a place where stories unfolded and pain softened. But her own story was written in heartache. Years ago, Claire had been a devoted mother to triplet boys, Ethan, Caleb, and Noah. Their sudden disappearance in 1985 had shattered her world and reshaped her life's trajectory. Since then, she had crafted a careful routine, immersing herself in the rhythms of the town and the comforting predictability of the library's shelves. Yet beneath this calm, she carried the weight of unanswered questions and the faint hope that one day her boys might be found. Her close-knit circle of friends knew her as kind, patient, and generous. But none truly understood the depth of her longing. Claire often spent evenings walking the shoreline, whispering her prayers to the crashing waves, hoping the ocean might carry her love to wherever her sons had gone. Her life was a delicate balance of acceptance and unyielding hope, waiting for a sign that the missing pieces of her family puzzle might someday return. Since the heartbreaking loss of her sons, Claire had relocated from the bustling city of Portland to the quieter, slower-paced town of Seabrook. Nestled along Oregon's rugged coastline, Seabrook offered her a fragile sense of peace, far from the painful reminders of the past. Her small, weathered cottage overlooked the restless ocean, where the salty breeze seemed to carry away some of her burdens. Her days were filled with the comforting predictability of her work at the town library, where she helped locals find escape in stories while quietly living her own. The community had embraced her with gentle kindness, unaware of the silent grief she carried behind her warm smiles. Despite her solitude, Claire had built meaningful friendships, especially with Maggie, her lifelong confidant, who never ceased to encourage her healing. Though her life was outwardly calm, the ache of absence lingered. Family holidays were now quieter, and celebrations without her boys felt hollow. Evenings were often spent by the fireplace, where memories flickered in the dancing flames, reminders of laughter that once filled these rooms. Yet Claire refused to let grief define her. She tended her garden meticulously, nurturing life where it had once been taken, holding on to a sliver of hope that the future might one day bring reunion and healing. One rainy morning, as Claire sat scrolling through her tablet over a cup of chamomile tea, a headline caught her eye. Local charity worker's remarkable story goes viral. Curiosity piqued. She tapped on the video. The screen lit up with images of a young man named Ethan Carter, passionately organizing community outreach programs in a nearby city. Claire's heart jolted. There was something unmistakable about Ethan. His sharp hazel eyes, the slight curl of his dark hair, and most strikingly, a tattoo on his forearm shaped like a delicate oak leaf. It was the same design her triplets had each drawn as toddlers in their coloring books. The realization sent a ripple of disbelief through her chest. The video showed Ethan speaking warmly about his upbringing, though he avoided details about his past. As Claire watched, memories flooded back. The faces of her boys, their laughter echoing through empty rooms, the years lost in silence. She paused the video and leaned closer, studying every detail, searching for signs that this man could be one of her sons. The footage had been shared thousands of times, sparking conversations across social media about second chances and family reunions. Claire felt an unexpected surge of hope mingled with fear. Could this be the moment she'd been waiting for? Gathering her courage, she made a silent vow to find out the truth, no matter how difficult the journey might be. Claire's hands trembled as she closed the tablet, her mind racing. The resemblance was uncanny, but doubt gnawed at her. Could it really be him? After all these years, hope was a fragile thing she had learned to guard carefully. Still, the possibility ignited a spark she thought long extinguished. She reached for her phone and hesitated before dialing a number she hadn't called in years. The investigative journalist, Mark Daniels, who had originally reported on Ethan's charity work. Mark answered after a few rings, his voice warm but surprised. Claire introduced herself cautiously and explained her connection to the missing triplets from 1985. To her relief, Mark was receptive and agreed to share more details. He sent her additional footage and background information on Ethan, including interviews with his coworkers and friends. Claire pored over every frame, searching for clues. A familiar gesture, a laugh, a shared habit. That evening, Claire sat by the ocean, the waves crashing like echoes of her past. She wrestled with a flood of emotions, fear, hope, longing. The thought of reaching out to Ethan terrified her, but she knew she couldn't ignore the chance. She began drafting a letter, carefully choosing words that balanced hope with caution. With renewed determination, Claire decided that tomorrow she would make contact, gently opening the door to a reunion that could either heal decades of pain or shatter the fragile peace she had found. For the first time in years, she felt alive with purpose. The summer of 1985 had been unremarkable in the quiet town of Millhaven, Oregon, except for the laughter of three inseparable boys playing in their front yard. Ethan, Caleb, and Noah Morgan, identical triplets with boundless energy and curiosity, were the pride of their small community. Their mother, Claire, often watched from the kitchen window as they built forts and chased each other under the warm sun. But on one ordinary afternoon, everything changed. A man named Harold Beckett had recently moved into the neighborhood. Outwardly charming and respected, he quickly ingratiated himself with local families. Harold was known for his work as a community organizer and often offered to help with after-school activities. Many trusted him, including Claire, who had no reason to suspect any ill intent. That day, Harold approached the boys with ice cream cones and promises of a fun outing. The triplets, excited and trusting, followed him willingly. Hours later, when Claire stepped outside calling for her sons, the street was empty. Neighbors joined the frantic search, but no sign of the boys could be found. The police launched an extensive investigation. Flyers were posted across Oregon, and volunteers combed wooded areas, but the boys had vanished without a trace. The only clue was a single, unfamiliar tire track near the nearby forest edge. The community's fear turned to despair as days turned into weeks. Despite the efforts of Detective Rachel Hayes and a dedicated task force, the trail went cold. Claire was left to grapple with a terrifying uncertainty. Had her sons been taken by a stranger, or worse? As the years passed, the search faded from headlines, but never from Claire's heart. The memory of that day haunted her dreams, fueling a relentless hope that someday, somehow, the truth would come to light. In the months and years following the disappearance, the town of Millhaven rallied around Claire and her family. Community members organized search parties, held vigils, and shared flyers throughout the region. The local news ran special segments, keeping the story alive and the hope flickering. Detective Rachel Hayes, a seasoned investigator with a compassionate heart, took the case personally. Though many believed the boys were lost forever, Rachel refused to give up. She meticulously followed every lead, interviewed hundreds of witnesses, and pursued connections that often led nowhere. Her dedication earned Claire's unwavering trust. Alongside Rachel stood Maggie Reynolds, Claire's oldest and closest friend. Maggie had been a constant source of strength, helping Claire manage the overwhelming grief and the exhaustion of waiting. Together, they would sit for hours, sifting through news reports, organizing community meetings, and comforting each other through the darkest nights. Yet, despite the support and the collective effort, the case grew colder. No new evidence emerged, and the trail of the boys seemed to vanish like a whisper in the wind. Claire's life became a delicate balance between holding on to hope and accepting an unbearable loss. Still, the bond between Claire, Rachel, and Maggie never faltered. Their shared resolve to find the truth, no matter how long it took, created an unspoken promise that one day the missing pieces would fall into place. This network of love and persistence was the foundation upon which Claire would one day stand when the unexpected discovery began to unravel the past and breathe life into her long-held hope. After days of gathering courage, Claire finally reached out to Ethan Carter through a carefully worded email. She introduced herself simply as a concerned woman seeking answers about a family connection. The response came cautiously but quickly. Ethan was intrigued yet wary, unsure of what to believe. Their first meeting was arranged at a quiet cafe near the harbor, a neutral ground where emotions could unfold gently. Claire arrived early, nerves fluttering in her chest, as she awaited the young man who might be one of her lost sons. When Ethan walked in, her breath caught. He resembled the photos from decades past, the same intense hazel eyes, a smile that hinted at familiar warmth. But there were differences too. His posture was guarded, his expressions carefully measured, as if protecting a fragile truth. Conversation began with hesitant questions, carefully avoiding the weight of the past at first. Ethan spoke of his life, the charity work, the friends, the man who raised him, Harold Beckett, but remained silent on the origins Claire longed to confirm. Claire watched him closely, noticing subtle gestures, how he rubbed his forearm where the oak leaf tattoo was etched, a habit her boys had shared in childhood when nervous. She mentioned small memories, testing the waters, hoping to ignite recognition. Doubt crept in alongside hope. Was this really one of her sons, or simply a cruel coincidence? Ethan's own uncertainty mirrored hers, a delicate dance of trust forming between two souls haunted by unanswered questions. Despite the fog of hesitation, a bond began to form, fragile but undeniable, sparking a possibility that the years of pain and searching might soon lead to answers. Claire's heart both ached and soared, ready to face whatever truth lay ahead. Over the following weeks, Claire and Ethan met cautiously but consistently. Each encounter was a delicate balance between revealing and protecting as they navigated the murky waters of uncertainty. Ethan shared glimpses of his life, his passion for helping others through charity work, his struggles with identity, and the elusive memories that didn't quite fit together. Claire listened intently, offering comfort and patience. She spoke softly of the boys' childhood games, the way they used to finish each other's sentences, and the small, personal rituals only a mother and her sons would know. Ethan's eyes would sometimes flicker with recognition, only to be clouded by confusion moments later. The oak leaf tattoo, the shared habit of twisting a lock of hair when nervous, and his quick smile all became subtle threads weaving between them. Trust grew slowly, built on these small but significant signs that felt too real to dismiss. Yet, shadows lingered. Ethan's loyalty to the man who had raised him, Harold Beckett, created tension. He grappled with feelings of gratitude mixed with the uneasy realization that his past might be more complicated than he had ever imagined. Claire, too, fought her own fears, the possibility of rejection, the pain of false hope, and the weight of uncovering painful truths. Still, neither could deny the pull of connection, a fragile bridge forming across the years lost. Together, they prepared to face the unknown, knowing the road ahead would test their bond, but holding tightly to the hope that family, no matter how fractured, could find a way back. The day Claire and Ethan confronted Harold Beckett arrived with a heavy weight hanging in the air. Harold's secluded retreat lay deep in the forested outskirts of the town, a place that once seemed a sanctuary, but now carried shadows of a twisted past. As they approached the weathered cabin, Ethan's heart pounded with conflicting emotions, fear, anger, and a hesitant hope for closure. Harold, older and grayer, but with the same unsettling charm, greeted them with a guarded smile. His eyes flickered with recognition, yet he denied any wrongdoing with practiced ease. "I did what I thought was best," he insisted, his voice calm but cold. "Those boys needed a family." Claire's voice trembled as she stepped forward. "They were my sons. You took them. We've lived in torment for decades." Ethan watched the man who had been his guardian, wrestling with the flood of memories, harsh discipline, confusing rules, and a pervasive feeling of being both loved and controlled. His anger clashed with the gratitude he felt for having been cared for at all. Harold's justifications rang hollow against the years of silence and pain. The confrontation stirred deep wounds in all three, but it also opened a fissure for truth to emerge. In that tense moment, Ethan made a decision, one that would change everything. He chose to break free from the legacy Harold imposed, to embrace his past and seek justice alongside Claire. The weight of decades lifted slightly as they prepared to face the long road ahead, united by truth and the fragile hope of healing. Ethan stood silently as Harold's words hung in the air, wrestling with a storm of emotions that churned deep within him. For years, Harold had been both guardian and captor, a figure who shaped his childhood with a confusing blend of kindness and control. The memories flooded back, the strict rules, the moments of warmth overshadowed by fear, the isolation from a world he barely knew. His loyalty to the only father figure he'd ever known warred with the dawning realization that much of what he'd believed was a carefully woven lie. The idea that Claire was his mother, that he had brothers out there, was overwhelming. Yet the truth called to him, louder than the safety of familiarity. Looking at Claire, Ethan saw not just a stranger, but the reflection of a past he longed to reclaim. The hope in her eyes, the tremble of her voice, it pierced through the confusion and fear. He felt the weight of choice pressing down. Cling to the life Harold built, or step into the unknown with Claire, risking pain and rejection but opening the door to healing. In a moment heavy with courage, Ethan exhaled deeply. "I want to know," he said quietly. "I want to find out who I really am." Claire reached out, her hands steady and warm. "We'll face it together." That decision marked the first step in breaking free from the shadows of the past and beginning a journey toward truth, forgiveness, and the hope of rebuilding what was lost. Days later, the sterile white walls of the genetics lab felt both cold and hopeful as Claire and Ethan waited for the results. The air was thick with anticipation, their hands intertwined but hearts pounding with anxiety. This test would confirm what words alone could not, the undeniable truth of blood and identity. When the technician finally approached, clipboard in hand, Claire's breath caught. The results were clear. Ethan's DNA matched perfectly with Claire's, confirming he was indeed her long-lost son. But that wasn't all. Further testing had identified samples from two more men, Caleb and Noah, living in nearby towns, connected by the same genetic thread. Tears welled in Claire's eyes as a wave of emotions crashed over her, relief, disbelief, joy, and sorrow all intertwined. After decades of searching and silent prayers, her family's shattered pieces were beginning to come together. Ethan's face reflected the same storm within. The confirmation brought clarity, but also raised countless questions about the years they had lost. Yet amidst the turmoil, a quiet hope took root that this was the beginning of healing, not just for them, but for the family fractured by time and pain. In that moment, the sterile lab became a sacred space of reunion and new beginnings. The science had spoken, but more importantly, it had opened the door to love rediscovered and futures rewritten. The revelation triggered a swift and decisive response from law enforcement. Harold Beckett, once a respected figure in the community, found himself facing charges that echoed the pain he had caused for decades. Kidnapping, false imprisonment, child abuse, and identity fraud became the heavy words weighing on his future. Claire watched from the courtroom gallery as Harold's confident facade began to crumble. The evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the testimony from Ethan and others who had been hidden away in Harold's care, and the DNA results that shattered his carefully constructed lies. The community's shock was palpable. Neighbors who once trusted Harold now grappled with disbelief and betrayal. Yet amid the turmoil, many expressed gratitude for the courage of Claire and her sons, who had dared to unearth the truth and confront the past. For Claire, the legal battle was bittersweet. Justice was necessary, but it could never fully erase the years stolen from her family. Still, watching Harold held accountable offered a measure of peace, a closing of a dark chapter and a step toward healing. As court proceedings unfolded, Claire remained steadfast, supported by her sons and longtime friends. Together, they faced the difficult road ahead with determination, knowing that while scars remained, the promise of a new beginning had been won through truth and courage. The first days of reunion were filled with a mixture of joy, awkwardness, and cautious hope. Claire welcomed Ethan, Caleb, and Noah back into her home, a place heavy with memories both painful and precious. The walls that had once echoed with silence now vibrated softly with tentative laughter and whispered conversations. Therapy sessions became a regular part of their routine, helping to bridge the emotional distance carved by decades apart. Each son grappled with the ghosts of their childhood, fragmented memories, feelings of abandonment, and the struggle to reconcile the life they had known with the family they had lost. Claire's patience and unwavering love created a sanctuary where healing could begin. She relearned the contours of their personalities, the way Ethan's thoughtful gaze softened when comforted, Caleb's quiet determination, and Noah's playful spirit shining through cracks of vulnerability. Friends and community members rallied around them, offering support without judgment. The process was neither quick nor easy, but every shared meal, every small act of understanding, stitched the torn fabric of their family tighter. Though the road ahead was uncertain, Claire embraced these early moments with gratitude. The chance to hold her sons once again, to witness their growth and resilience, was a gift more precious than words could express. As days turned into weeks, Ethan, Caleb, and Noah began to navigate the complex journey of reclaiming their identities. Each faced the challenge of piecing together who they had been with who they had become. Memories blurred between two worlds, the one Harold Beckett had created and the one they were rediscovering with Claire. Ethan struggled with feelings of loyalty and betrayal, torn between gratitude for his upbringing and the pain of deception. Caleb sought solace in quiet moments, grappling with anger and confusion. Noah's playful nature sometimes masked deep fears about belonging. Therapy sessions opened pathways for honest conversations, allowing them to voice fears, hopes, and doubts. Slowly, they began to understand that identity was not solely shaped by the past, but also by the choices they made moving forward. Claire supported them unconditionally, encouraging exploration of their roots and embracing the complex emotions involved. Family dinners became moments of sharing stories, old and new, building a foundation of trust and acceptance. Together, they visited childhood places, traced forgotten paths, and celebrated small victories. The scars of their past remained, but they no longer defined the brothers. Instead, they stood united in their shared history and the promise of a future rebuilt. Though the road was long and winding, hope blossomed with each step. In reclaiming their true selves, Ethan, Caleb, and Noah found strength not only in their mother's love, but in the bond of brotherhood renewed. On a crisp spring morning, Claire and Ethan stood together in the garden behind their cottage, the earth soft beneath their feet. In their hands rested a young sapling, a symbol of growth, resilience, and new beginnings. The moment was quiet yet profound, filled with the weight of years and the promise of what lay ahead. Claire's fingers gently covered Ethan's as they planted the tree together, their movements slow and deliberate. The act was more than gardening. It was a silent vow to nurture their fragile bond and cultivate hope amid the remnants of pain. As they stepped back, watching the sapling sway in the gentle breeze, Ethan felt a sense of peace he had not known for decades. The garden, once a place of solitude, now held the warmth of reunion and possibility. Claire smiled, her eyes reflecting both tears and triumph. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. "We're growing together." In that shared moment, time seemed to soften, the past no longer a heavy burden, but a foundation from which they could rise. The tree's delicate leaves reached toward the sky, mirroring their own journey of healing and the resilience of family. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the garden, Claire and Ethan stood side by side, their shadows stretching long and intertwined. The future remained uncertain, woven with challenges, unanswered questions, and moments yet to come. But in the quiet strength of their shared presence, a powerful truth took root. "No matter where the road leads," Claire said softly, "we face it together as family." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle deep within him. The years apart had carved distance, but they had also forged resilience, hope, and an unbreakable bond. The past was no longer a chain but a chapter, a part of their story that shaped who they were but would not define who they would become. With a final glance at the young tree, they turned toward the house, toward a future still unwritten but rich with possibility. The night sky bloomed with stars, silent witnesses to a family's journey through darkness into light. And so, beneath the vast expanse of the Oregon sky, their story continued, open, uncertain, but filled with hope.